Hi, in this video we're going to be going over how to calculate the distance between two cities in Python. This can be done really easily with the GeoPy, which is a library that was released in Python. And as you can see, it has a lot of amazing features. You can even calculate the distance to a specific address if you chose to. We are going to be using the set of longitude and latitude in order to be calculating our distances. So this is the code that we're going to be writing. You notice here that we take in two places. We use the longitude and latitude, and then we were able to find out the distance in miles. So let's see if we can code this in Python. So the first thing you're going to want to do is install the Python library. I already have installed, so I'm just going to import it into my code. If you don't, that's the first step that you're going to want to do. We need to import Natum, which is going to be helping us with calculating our distances. It's actually going to be setting up like an agent that we're going to be using in order to access this library. This is really similar to like a client that you would be using if you were using Google Sheets, for example. Next, we obviously need to also import the distance, and this will allow us to calculate the distance in miles when we get those two longitude and latitude points. And then we actually need to create our client. That's going to be geolocator is equal to notem. I'm not actually sure why they call it this. And then our user agent is actually going to be whatever you call it. So you can call it like distance calculator. So this is just the title of your app. So I'm just going to call it distance calculator because that's like a really easy name, and that's essentially what I'm doing in my project. The next step is to obviously define a main function. I'm just going to have two places as strings, but in your project, you might want to have these as inputs. This really depends on what you want to do. So I can have New York City and Houston. It might be easier just to do Dallas. It honestly does not matter. I'm just going to do Dallas and Houston because I have that pulled up. And in Python, you need to do if name is equal to main, then you're just going to run the main function. So this is just something that Python has for convention. So I'm going to create two more methods. The first one is going to be calculating the latitude and longitude, and that way we can calculate the latitude and longitude of place 1 and place 2 without needing to duplicate the code. So let's just create a function get lat long city. So we're going to pass in the city string. And the first thing is that you want to define the country. This isn't necessary, it just helps improve accuracy if there happens to be another city with the same name or the code just gets confused. This is really nice to just specify and make your code more accurate. So for me, it's going to be in the United States. If you're doing a project where you're comparing different countries, then you want to include in this initial string. So the location is going to be, we're going to be using our geolocator because that will be calculating the latitude and longitude .geocode. We're going to pass in the city as well as the country. So in total, this string is going to look like Dallas, United States, for example. So if you want, this can be in the original string. All right, and then all we need to do is return the latitude and the longitude. Awesome. So we just need to find the longitude and latitude for both of these. So I'm just going to say the position 1 is equal to get lat long for place 1, and then position 2 is get lat long for place 2. The next step is to calculate the distance. So for this, we're going to be taking in a latitude and a longitude for place 1 and a latitude and a longitude for place 2. The first step is that GeoPy needs these to be coordinates, so we can say coordinate 1 is going to be lat 1, lat long 1. If you want, you can actually return these coordinates like this in our initial function so that we can just pass in those coordinates directly. This really depends on your usage. I'm just going to stick with what I had originally to keep it simple. We also need to create a second coordinate for our second location. And then this is a really straightforward. Just return geopie.distance. Remember, this is what we imported at the beginning of our code. Dot geodisk. So this is going to be calculating the distance between two places using latitude and longitude. All you need to do is pass in your two coordinates and you want to return the value in miles. This can be like meters, this can be like meters if you want. This really depends on what you want and your use case for this. So we need to call this function in our main code. So I'm just going to say distance is calculate distance. And then because remember this array, this is an array where the first one's latitude and the second one's longitude. So you just want to be passing in those array values. So we have position 1, this is the latitude, this is the longitude, this is the latitude, and we also need to do the longitude for this one as well. And then the last step is to just print out your distance. If there's something else that you want to do, like put this into like a Google Sheet, for example, then that is something that you can also add with this distance. But because I'm not doing that, I'm just going to print it out. And I'm going to test it by just running the code. And if I just open up my terminal, open up the debug console, and I'm just going to run without debugging. And you'll notice that it outputs 224. So this is in miles. And if we go over to Google, you'll notice that it's 239 miles. So this is really accurate. Obviously, it's not precise because Google and this API are going to be using slightly different locations in the city because the entire city does not have one latitude and longitude point, for example. But you can see that this is really close and it basically gets the big picture. So I hope that this library is helpful for you wherever you want to apply it, and see you in the next video.